Hello, this is Jennifer Pollard with the Provider and Contract Management Unit. I want to welcome you to the Safe and Sound presentation on preventing, addressing, and reporting significant incidents. We're discussing this topic today because it is important to our providers, VIR staff, participants, and families that we keep all participants safe. So, when a rare significant incident does occur, we want to make sure that it is appropriately addressed and reported. Providers or staff may be joining this training as part of just general information or as part of the Summer U 2023 training related to SERF training and reporting. The purpose of this training is safety first, and it is to keep in mind the safety of our participants who come to us to engage in services and to guide them through their career journey. Providers support individuals with disabilities in a variety of community settings and ensure their safety during services in the community, such as a community-based assessment worksite, during summer youth work experiences, or while providing on-the-job supports. Incidents which occur are very rare, but must be addressed with a sense of urgency, communicated timely, and clearly documented. The Significant Incident Report Form, or SERF, is a helpful tool to ensure consistency. In this training, we are reviewing participant safety during services. Though some information is taken from the incident report procedure, this is not a training of the specific procedure. All right, this slide is going to discuss keeping participants safe. And on the left-hand side, you will see a picture that has different individuals with different race and gender. So when we say keeping participants safe, we mean keeping them safe from physical injury or harm, safe from verbal, physical, or sexual harassment, safe from discrimination or harassment based on race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin, age, and disability. We mean keeping them safe from being exposed to inappropriate media or materials. Providers have a responsibility to create an environment where violations are immediately recognized, addressed, and reported so they do not reoccur. Significant incidents are rare, meaning they just don't happen very often. But we also want significant incidents to be recognized, addressed, reported, and extinguished. Recognizing is the first step that an incident is significant. OOD does expect that it's addressed immediately and reported on the Significant Incident Report Form, or SERF. And when we say extinguished, we mean that we try to reduce future risk or prevent a reoccurrence and take any actions necessary to ensure that this doesn't escalate or reoccur. So what is a SERF? The SERF is a Significant Incident Report Form. A SERF is a form on which a significant incident is reported to OOD. A significant incident is an unusual incident that potentially impacts an individual's health or safety. According to OAC Rule 3304-2-53, providers shall report and document all events which affect or pose a threat to the health and safety of individuals receiving services from OOD through the Significant Incident Report Form. Providers shall follow the VIR Provider Manual guidelines regarding timeliness, contact, and reporting process. This includes situations such as suspicion of illegal activity. This could include violations of local, state, and/or federal law, including state ethics laws, that either are committed or are in the process of being committed by or against a participant. An individual causes or attempts to cause harm, creates a risk of causing harm, or threatens the health, safety, and/or well-being of an OOD participant. A participant is causing or attempting to cause harm, creating a risk of causing harm, or threatening the health, safety, or well-being of another person. And it includes medical emergencies or mental health crises involving a participant. Providers may have additional internal reporting requirements as well as their own agency policy and procedures regarding safety. So why is a SERF needed? It can be used to document significant incidents. It can also be used to determine if it is safe for the individual to continue with services or to determine if a corrective action is needed to reduce the risk. It can be used to consult with OOD legal department, and it can be used to document other agencies involved in the incident or other individuals who were notified. So who completes a SERF? The significant incident report form is to be completed by the provider staff working with the individual, such as the job coach or job developer. They may do so in consultation with their supervisor. Once the VR counselor or contractor receives a SERF, they should complete the appropriate section on the second page. The VR staff can also now use this form to report any significant incidents that may occur while they are working with a participant as well. When is the reporting period? We really want the incident to be reported soon after it occurs. So when we think of a clock or timer for reporting, the time starts from when the incident occurs, not from when it is reported to provider management. With this, it's very important the direct staff working with participant understands that they need to recognize an incident and likely staff with their supervisor. Direct support staff must be trained to recognize, address, and report significant incidents and report them to their management in a timely manner. When appropriate reporting has not occurred, there is often a communication breakdown between direct staff and management. A failure by direct staff to report incidents in a timely manner can result in unaddressed incidents, a reoccurrence of the incident, or a string of incidents rather than a single incident. Now we're going to discuss examples of when a SERF is needed. You can also find these examples in the VR Provider Manual on page 73. So a SERF should be completed when there are medical emergencies or mental health crises involving an individual causes or attempts to cause harm, creates a risk of causing harm, or threatens the health, safety, or well-being of themselves or another person. Suspicion of illegal activity, either committed or in the process of being committed by or against an individual. An individual has reported abuse in their household, place of residence, a place of employment, or provider staff have observed abusive behavior occurring either inside or outside the individual's place of residence or employment. An individual exhibits signs of abuse or neglect. An individual is the target of harassment, such as physical, sexual, financial, or verbal harassment, or harasses another individual, including allegations of harassment. An individual makes unwanted sexual advances or is the recipient of unwanted sexual advances. Or an individual is missing from services, such as the worksite or provider office, for any length of time and cannot be located. You'll also find examples of when a SERF is not needed in the VR Provider Manual on page 73. These examples could include things as when an individual case update occurs, such as a health diagnosis or personal matter unrelated to current services being delivered. In this type of situation, we would not need a SERF. An example of this may be if someone receives a diagnosis of diabetes during a time that's not related to services. That's absolutely something that the provider will want to inform the counselor about, but again, is not something that we would require a SERF for. We also would not need a SERF if an individual refuses to complete work tasks, or if an individual is not performing work at the level of competitive integrated employment, or if an individual experiences an injury that can be treated by basic first aid. There are some situations that may be questionable whether it would require a SERF. If it is uncertain if a SERF is required, please consult with your VR staff. It is often better to have documentation of an incident and not need it than to not fully document and later need the details. On the right-hand side of the screen, you will see an image of the cover page of the Service and Standards VR Provider Manual. We're now going to discuss reporting observations versus diagnosing. There are times where we receive SERFs that attempt to identify physical or mental diagnoses of a participant. Provider staff should not make mental or physical health diagnoses during service delivery or in service reports. And this is noted in the VR provider manual on page 73 as well. So some basic examples of inappropriate reporting could be things like, after the fall, Emily's leg was fine and was not broken. Or job coach determined that Stephen has depression. Examples of appropriate reporting for these type of situations would be such as, after the fall, Emily stated she felt fine and had no pain. There were no visible cuts or bruises on her leg. Or Stephen stated that he has been feeling down lately and is not finding joy in activities he used to. Job coach noticed he was less talkative than usual and did not smile once during the day. We want to be careful to, again, not make a diagnosis, but provide information more based on our observations or what is reported to us by the participant. Parent and guardian notification. When there's an incident that is determined to rise to the level of a SERF, a participant's parent or legal guardian, if applicable, should generally be notified. The SERF should document any related parent or legal guardian communication, such as job coach phoned and spoke with Mason's mother regarding his fall, who appreciated the call. VR staff, please reference custody, guardianship, and power of attorney policy, number 80-VR-19 if needed. Again, on the right-hand side of this slide, you will see a lady who is using the assistance of a wheelchair. We're going to check your knowledge here with a few questions. The first one says, which of the following incidents would be considered a significant incident which would require provider staff to address and report the behavior? You are able to select more than one. Answer. A says participant punches a wall during services and makes a threat to harm others. B says the participant states that he would prefer not to work and wishes he would win the lottery. C, participant slips and falls on a wet floor at a work site. He says his leg hurts. Or D, participant sends inappropriate text to another participant while in a group service. They do not want to be contacted. They ask that this stops, but this communication and unwanted communication continues. The answer is more than one and would be A, C, and D. Those are all incidents which would require a significant incident report form. Now, we're going to look at one potential story with two potential outcomes. The scenario involved a youth engaging in services, and they become frustrated, punched a wall, and made some verbal references to harming other people in the vicinity. There are two ways a provider may choose to approach this. The first response to the scenario is, kids will be kids. Provider staff dismiss this behavior as part of their youth or as part of disability-related symptom, and the participant continues in the group summer youth service. So what are the possible risks to this approach? In this scenario, consequences of this type of approach could be that the participant believes this is acceptable workplace behavior. Other students in the group could be afraid, and the next day or the next week, the behavior could return or escalate, potentially putting students or employers at risk. The work site could lose confidence in having VR participants on site if not appropriately addressed. And the provider could be placed on a corrective action plan for failure to address behavior or report in a timely manner. Now, response B for this type of scenario is the stop and staff. Provider staff immediately report to referring VR counselor or coordinator, a SERF is received, and there is a staffing with the participant and their family before services can resume. Things could be discussed about what does this person need, what would be safe for everyone. So scenario B, it may be decided that the participant would like to return to counseling, participate in anger management, and return to an individualized summer youth or other service in the future. There's a discussion of the behavior, inappropriateness for the workplace, potential future consequences for behavior in the workplace, such as, the participant could lose a future job for the behavior. The participant is not allowed to return to the group service. Understand the participant's youth and disability-related factors help us understand the participant, but they do not excuse the behavior. So as we're looking at ways to respond to situations, please keep in mind that we do want to understand our participants, their emotions, and their disabilities, but we do have a responsibility to help them and to consider public and group safety. The stop and staff approach is the preferred approach. So we have another check your knowledge situation here. Charles is a 53-year-old male participating in OOD services. He has been engaging in on-the-job supports and is in the process of reducing the amount of hours needed. While at work over the weekend, Charles had a heart attack. This was not during the time that on-the-job supports was provided. So is a SERF necessary once the provider staff is informed of this incident? A is yes or B is no. So the answer to this is B. This occurred outside of OOD services being provided. However, once the provider staff is informed of this incident, it would be appropriate for this to be reported to the VRC. If the heart attack had occurred while on-the-job supports was being provided, this would have occurred during OOD services and would require a SERF to be completed. We have another check your knowledge. Haley is a 15-year-old female participating in a summer youth work experience. She discloses to the job coach that she has been physically abused by her mom. What should provider staff do in this situation? Again, you can choose more than one answer. A is ask if Haley is okay and continue with services. B, report this to OOD as soon as possible and complete a SERF. C, contact Children's Services. Or D, write about this incident in Summer Youth Work Experience Report, but not report it to their supervisor or OOD. The answer is B and C. Anytime there's a report made of possible abuse to a child or developmentally delayed individual connected with local community board of developmental disabilities, this should be reported immediately to the appropriate authority, such as Children's Services or DODD. OOD would need to be contacted and a SERF completed whether or not the incident occurred during OOD services. The safety and security of a participant needs to always come first. So you can find instructions on reporting incidences in a couple of locations. You can find them in the VR Provider Manual or actually on the Significant Incident Report form that is on our OOD website under Information for Providers and Provider Forms. Provider instructions. Providers are asked to take immediate steps to ensure the individual's health and safety. So certainly, if someone has been injured or needs to be taken to the local nurse, urgent care, and so on, that will always be addressed first before the Significant Incident Report form is completed. We also want to make sure that the counselor is notified via telephone. Leaving a message is not sufficient notification if the incident has occurred during business hours. It's okay to leave a voice message for a counselor, for example, but we don't want the communication to end there. If the counselor themselves is out of the office, if they're out sick, or if they're on vacation, for example, then that voice message will not reach anyone at OOD. So if the counselor could not be immediately reached, leaving the voice message is not sufficient, and we ask that our provider then reach out to a local supervisor in the office. Usually our providers have great relationships with the local supervisors in the office. They're used to meeting with them through our quarterly field meetings, for example. But if there's a question about who the supervisor would be, you can always contact a local OOD office and ask to speak to a supervisor. Reporting an incident does need to occur as soon as possible, but within 24 hours after the incident. Provider staff may also need to notify other agencies such as a local county board of DD, children's services, or law enforcement that can be part of the conversation with the VR staff, and we'll speak about that a little bit later. Provider staff must follow up with a written copy of the SERF within 24 hours, email the SERF via Zix mail to the VR counselor or contractor, and CC pcmu@ood.ohio.gov. Failure to follow this process may result in the provider being suspended and/or put on a corrective action plan. So, provider instructions after hours reporting. OOD recently implemented provider instructions for after hours reporting. If the incident or issue occurred during non-business hours, such as in the evenings, weekend, or holidays, and did not involve filing a local county board of developmental disabilities major unusual incident or MUI report, or involve law enforcement being contacted, the provider is required to leave a voicemail with the VR counselor or VR contractor and follow up with a call the first thing in the morning of the next business day. If the incident or issue involved filing an MUI or law enforcement was contacted, providers are required to contact an OOD area manager, assistant deputy director, or deputy director immediately after the individual's safety, health, and/or welfare was verified and other required contacts are made. OOD contact numbers can be found on the OOD provider webpage and are listed on the next slide. So this slide is the list of OOD contacts listed on the OOD website. And it has each area manager's name, the area they cover, as well as their cell phone number. It then goes to the assistant deputy director, what areas they cover, and their cell phone numbers, and then it goes to the deputy directors and their phone numbers. Now we're going to discuss VRC instructions according to procedure 10-ADM-04, which is the incident report and tracking procedure. This slide discusses the counselor's responsibilities and incident reporting. So upon notification of an incident or issue, the VR counselor or contractor shall verify that the provider completed the appropriate steps. This may be that they need to ensure the individual's safety, health, and/or welfare were taken care of, such as 911 was called, they provided first aid. And it may include making sure that immediate notification to the assigned VR counselor or contractor was made via telephone. They need to verify that the provider did make contact and that leaving a voicemail message is not a sufficient notification. If the VR counselor or contractor was not available, the provider should have called the VR counselor or contractor supervisor or a local OOD office to speak with a supervisor or the OOD provider liaison. So the incident or issue happened during non-working hours, such as evening, weekend, and holiday, the provider should have left a voicemail with the VR counselor or contractor and then made telephone contact the morning of the next business day. Then, depending on the nature of the incident or issue, if appropriate, the provider should have notified other agencies such as the local county board of developmental disabilities, children's services, and law enforcement. If the individual is eligible to receive services from the local county board of developmental disabilities, that county board's major unusual incident report form should have been completed and submitted by the provider. And then within 24 hours of the incident or issue, the provider should have completed the significant incident report form or SERF and submitted it via secure email or Zix mail to the VR counselor or contractor and copy in PCMU. If they spoke to someone other than the assigned VR counselor or contractor, this person should have also been copied on the email. And if PCMU or if applicable, another person was not copied, the VRC should immediately forward it to PCMU and that other person. The VR counselor and contractor shall notify their supervisor and the appropriate OOD provider liaison within 2 hours of being informed of the incident. This is dependent on the type of incident or issue. The supervisor shall notify their area manager. The area manager will determine whether, if the incident requires discussion with the chief legal counsel, the Division of Human Resources, deputy director if incident is an EEO related incident, or assistant deputy director and or the deputy director. They will review the SERF of completeness, including determining if there was any provider responsibility. If necessary, contact the provider and or other VR staff or VR contractors to discuss the incident or issue or obtain additional information. They will complete the OOD portion of the SERF with things such as the follow-up requirements and action plans. And upon completion of the SERF, the VRC will upload it into Aware Case Notes with the title Significant Incident Report form. If the provider failed to follow incident reporting requirements, a VRC should notify their assigned PCMU staff via email and copy the PCMU supervisor. PCMU staff shall contact the provider to ensure they come into compliance with the incident reporting requirements. And upon receipt of a SERF, PCMU staff will review it and if determined necessary, contact the VR counselor or contractor, the provider, and or other appropriate individuals or entities to collect additional information, discuss report details, and or to provide support and or management. Services may be suspended until an incident or issue is resolved, and if appropriate, the provider may be placed on a corrective action plan or CAP. So considerations following a significant incident. Does a service need to be paused in order to complete it safely or consider next steps? So things to consider includes consider changing to an individual service if the incident took place during a group service. Consider meeting the individual support team, such as family, counselor, appropriate school contacts, local DD board contact, etc., to discuss success strategies. Consider reviewing success strategies from school's IEP or local DD board, including the Ohio ISP. Consider a new work site or work tasks. Consider developing a behavior plan or agreement with a provider staff, individual or parents, and legal guardian if applicable with clear boundaries. Consider modifying the schedule. Consider if this is the right time for the service or if the service should be terminated. Consider reviewing the Ohio ISP document if applicable. Recommend staffing complex cases with vocational rehabilitation supervisor. These are all considerations for VRCs to take into account when a significant incident arises to not only make sure everyone at the workplace is safe or out of harm's way, but also to try to work on helping make sure the individual is successful. This screen here is just a screenshot of what the first page of the SERF provider form, which is provider form 2, looks like. The first page has all of the instructions. This is, again, another screenshot of the second page of provider form 2, the SERF form, and it's the main page that gets filled out with all of the details of what occurred. And then the third page is more of the signature page for OOD staff to be able to fill out and complete what the action steps and next steps would be. So provider health and safety is going to be discussed on this slide. So providers should have procedures for ensuring participant safety. Providers shall be able to provide OOD a copy of their policies and procedures that address participant health and safety within 24 hours of being requested to do so. And services may not be able to continue until significant incidents have been resolved between the participant, OOD, and the provider with a safe plan to move forward in place. Providers are also responsible to accurately report any significant issues, safety concerns to the participants and or their parent or legal guardian as appropriate. So one thing we wanted to make sure to note in here is that effective March 28th of 2022, the updated provider rule requires provider background checks and identifies requirements for transporting participants. This applies to seasonal staff as well. If you have not done so, please review this rule. Some of the basic information included in this rule states that providers are required to perform background checks for provider staff, upon hire, and all current staff once every 5 years. Providers transporting participants must be at least 18 years old and have 2 years of driving experience, shall hold a valid driver license as specified by Ohio law, must be covered by valid liability insurance as specified by Ohio law, and have their Ohio BMV driving records reviewed by an approved provider. Provider staff must not have more than 6 points on their driving record or have their driver license revoked or suspended, and providers should maintain and be able to produce on request within 24 hours documentation of both the driving records and background checks if requested by OOD. So now we're going to go over some resources. The first resource is OOD offices. The referral to CRP form will have the referring VR staff's phone number. But if you need to find the main office phone number for any office, you can find it quickly at ood.ohio.gov. Click on Individuals with Disabilities, and then find your regional office. And this is just a picture of what the OOD website looks for, and it highlights the first tab to click on, which is Individuals with Disabilities, and then it highlights where to click on to find your regional office. Another resource is the Board of Developmental Disabilities. You can find their website at www.dodd.ohio.gov. And then you can click on the Supporting You and Your Family, and then click on Contact Your County Board. Report an MUI or most unusual incident by phone, or download the instant report form, the relevant county board. So again, this is a screenshot of what their website looks like, and it is highlighted where you can click on Supporting You and Your Family. And then it circles where you can click on Contact Your County Board. And the next resource is Children's Services. There is an automated telephone directory that will link callers directly to a child welfare or law enforcement office in their county, and that number is 855-O-H-child or 855-642-4453. So there is some information that is helpful to have on hand when you are making a report to Children's Services, and that information includes the name and address of the child you suspect is being abused or neglected, the age of the child, the name and address of the parents or caretakers, the name of the person you suspect is abusing or neglecting the child and the address if available, the reason you suspect the child is being abused and neglected, and any other information which may be helpful to the investigation. And you have the option of giving your name or reporting anonymously. Giving your name can help the investigator clarify information. The agency will not give your name to the person suspected of abusing the child. So we want to thank you. We want to thank providers, VR staff, and VR supervisors for all that you do to keep participants safe during the summer and year-round. This screen is just how to contact your local RPS from the Provider and Contract Management Unit. You can email pcmu@ood.ohio.gov, or you can contact Rhonda Woods in the Northeast area, Melanie Seckler in the East Central, Jennifer Pollard in the Southeast, Ginger Scaife in the Southwest, Jennifer Cosgrove in the Northwest, or Jay Burns, Supervisor. Again, we thank you, and we hope you have a wonderful day.